Hello, good sir.
Hello.
You haven't met yet.
Yes, we did, yeah.
You have,
yeah.
good to see you.
Yeah, good seeing you.
All right, so it's just past 7. I will call the meeting of the Historic District Commission to order. We have minutes from the previous, no.
No, sorry,
All right.
I forgot that I need to bring that.
We will then postpone adoption of the old minutes.
Sorry.
So the agenda,
You
she didn't get an agenda to you.
no.
Okay. Did everybody get my email from the .gov website
This morning?
this morning?
Yeah.
Did, you got it.
Yes.
Did you get my email that I sent directly to you?
I didn't make notes,
Okay.
but I got your email about the meeting,
Okay,
and I've got Ann's email saying she wasn't gonna be here.
okay, that was the .gov.
Okay.
Alright, so I'm having an issue, not to use up this meeting
Nope.
time with, but the emails,
Yes,
in my case,
yeah,
need to be authenticated every time I open my Outlook.
it shouldn't.
Shouldn't have to do that.
No, it should be like once a week that it's
So-
doing it.
I'm guessing it's on their end, because I don't have any, I've got 4 other email accounts, and they all dump in perfectly well.
Okay,
So I don't know if it's because it's a higher security clearance or something that,
no,
an
it
issue?
it should be like once a week for everybody in town.
once a week you have to do it?
Yeah. Like once a week you have to log back in.
Oh, yeah, that's what happened to me.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So-
once a week is expected, every day
Oh.
is not expected.
alright.
If you're checking it once a week, then that
Yeah,
does
so,
need to
well,
be-
and I did, I checked it yesterday to see if it's agenda and all the minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know what,
Michelle's on vacation this week, so I think that's where, I forgot to ask her last week for this information.
okay,
So not once a month.
Not once a month,
Okay.
once a week.
Okay.
alright, so, because it asked me yesterday,
Okay,
and I did it, and then it asked me again today,
it shouldn't be doing that. So can you come see me
again,
even after this meeting, we can take a look?
okay,
Cause is it on your phone or on a
it's on
laptop?
my laptop.
Okay,
Well, I'll catch you during office hours, you don't need to stay late, you don't need to take up the time here for it, but
okay,
that's, I just wanna clarify if anybody else is having similar issues, because it's difficult to get a hold of everybody if we're not supposed to be texting them or calling them.
Yeah.
Right, okay. The select board member has,
I miss every Saturday night, I gotta reset it and log back in and.
alright, so first on my agenda at least, was there was an application submitted by Canterbury Shaker Village. Do we have that? She didn't forward anything.
I have
You have
one
a
copy,
copy?
I'm happy to share it with you.
I can run up to the office and rifle through her files to see, cause I know it's there. I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna,
What I think, if you're okay with it, is we can just look at the hard copy, and if people are not comfortable making a decision today, then we can circulate the information
Well-
and make a decision another
well,
day.
let me give a little more detail. And
Okay,
that is that the application is for a project to create an accessible ramp to the backside of the carriage shop, which is the main ticketing and gift shop area. And it would be removable, so it would be a seasonal thing. So the details are in the application, we can pass that around, but what we're really meeting about tonight is not the approval necessarily, but a waiver of a public hearing, which the Board of Select representative and the chairman can grant. So ideally, we could approve it tonight if you take a look at it and deem so, but I wanted your input as to whether you're,
Can I ask a question? Are you talking about as you go up the lane, the carriage house on the right, is the main entrance for the ground floor?
it's actually the entrance around the back, so on the east side.
the east side of the
That
building.
goes out towards the restrooms and the Brethren shop.
Have you done anything about the ramp in the front?
No, we thought we would test this first on this lesser visible one, and see if we like the way it works.
Okay.
And if so, then we could do it on the main entrance, but
It's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
I know, that's why we're trying to do something. Because it catches
If you would
people's
pass that around so that you three can get an idea, I'll let Aaron speak to what the plan is.
Okay.
And then, if you so choose to approve the project based upon this, great, and then we can vote on whether we give the waiver for a public hearing. If you recall, last year at the town meeting, we passed an ordinance allowing this board to waive a public hearing under certain circumstances, without going through them all. Basically, it's those that still follow the spirit of the ordinance, follow the same procedures, materials and whatnot that an ordinance would require, and yet is not in a public view shed and isn't of a permanent nature so that we don't feel there's any infringement upon abutters or the public. So it's, in order for folks to be able to do some projects that really aren't a permanent effect upon any abutter or the public without having to go through the mailings, the public noticing, all the added expense. So that's kind of the background. But why don't you go ahead and talk about the actual project?
Okay, so the project, and I'll try to be brief and then you can ask questions if we need more detail, but again, it's around on the east side. It's sort of the second opening, big opening on that side. Normally we have doors that swing shut. When the doors are open, you can see that. So right now, there's an earthen ramp that goes to a granite slab. And then there is about an 8-inch step up. It's actually 2 inches of granite and then 6 inches up the sill into the floor level. And so what we're trying to do is just make that where you don't trip up it or stumble down it. So just make it a more gradual descent by adding, basically I'm calling it sort of a boardwalk, just like kind of a piece of deck that has some rails and just some decking over the top. So it'll be secure in the ground on the front, we'll sort of dig it in a little bit, I think is the idea. But we don't want it to have handrails, because that will make it really hard to close those doors at night, and it will be more visible. We will also have to cut 2.5 to 3 inches off the bottom of those barn doors. There have been barn doors there for a long time, but it's sort of they're in rough shape, and I've heard that they have been replaced before, I don't know that for sure. So that will change that a little bit, and we also would like to install wood posts to anchor those doors when they're open. Right now, they just have like a stake that you sort of just drop into the ground, and it just puts a lot of force on those doors when they open. So we just wanna sort of secure those open a little bit more. So those are sort of the components. And there might be a little bit of regrading of the ramp just to get it, you know, to meet well, but it won't be, I don't think there will be much earth moving because it has to work with drainage and it has to, you know, flow with the rest of the ramp next to it.
This is not a public access door.
It is a public access door. It's the door, so when most people come to the village, they go in the north door, which is also a problem, but we're testing this solution first. They go in, they pay their admission, and the first thing they say is, "Where's the restroom?" And if they've made it there, these are the doors that get them to the restroom. So they're the doors that go out the east side. So it is a public, it's a double, you know, a 2-leaf glass door in this, you know, sort of glazed in opening behind the barn doors.
Okay, I am still unclear. Yeah, it's a public access door. It's on the north end of the building.
It's on the east side.
You
East
have a
side.
drawing or anything?
I don't have a site plan.
Nope, but this will. So the brethren shop is if you go out this door,
Okay,
right, the bathroom.
okay.
This is the corner of the building here.
Are you going to be continuing to use the north door?
Yes,
for public access?
we will.
And you're going to see how this works and then maybe replicate it on the north loop?
I think, yep, we'll see if this works well, and if not, I think we'll do more of an earthen ramp adjustment over there if we have to. But one way or the problem with that is that then we're bringing earth up against that wooden sill, and I'm nervous to do that. So what this does is it allows the air to continue to flow, so we're not bringing earth right up against that, so.
Let me interject here, since we have a quorum, I'm recusing myself from this, because I will be, if it's approved, doing the work. So if you wanna ask me some of those questions
Thank
too, you can, but I won't be voting. Which is why the public hearing part, since I'm a part of that, I want you guys to actually take that on, okay? Yeah, so one of the issues is initially they had talked about raising that piece of granite. And it's
Just bringing the earth up and raising the granite.
raising the granite up to the door sill height, which would then cover the sill itself. That's a massive stone with a crack in it already, and you'd be disturbing everything up against the foundation underneath it. So I said, I personally wouldn't touch it. I think you're asking for a lot of trouble with that, as well as the drainage issues and whatnot. So then it became, how could you do a temporary type thing? And that's what led to this.
And we did look at alternatives partly because we have to also get approval from the state because they hold a preservation easement. And we do have their approval of this, as proposed. But they required that we look at a couple of different options. So we looked at getting sort of just a narrower aluminum ramp. That would have to have a landing and then go long enough that it would probably have to switch back and it would have to have a railing. So while it sounded like a good idea, but let's just buy one of those removable ramps, that didn't actually pencil out to work in terms of, it would have had to be more extensive. We looked at moving it to a different door. The state reviewer suggested that we move it to the north in the other opening. But that, can I just say, the technical, that messed up a lot of other things that we didn't wanna deal with. It was a can of worms. So this is really, I think, sort of like, what's the least we can do, project to solve the problem.
What are the materials they're gonna use?
Just going around?
Yeah. We haven't actually determined them, although they will be a natural
Yeah,
material.
it needs to be wood.
But I would.
What we might be able to do, I mean, we were thinking of ipe probably, right? Or cedar or ipe, isn't that what we were talking about? I think
Something
we
like
proposed
that.
cedar.
Probably cedar.
The under parts could potentially be pressure treated, that's not what we proposed, we proposed cedar
Yeah, I'm gonna look into actually maybe even doing steel.
underneath.
Underneath. Could do that.
Like 8-quarter white oak, it's gonna be heavy, it won't move, it'll last.
Well, removable is, yeah,
Well, I mean, you won't have to worry about someone tripping over it, going
Yeah.
up or kicking it out when
Right.
you're moving.
yeah,
Well, the idea is to have like an attaching
the
point
tractor can pull it out.
near the sill, but then you could move it with
Yeah.
forks with the tractor. So, yeah, the weight isn't such an issue, so I think we could.
Again, not something that the closer at the end of the day is gonna pull out of the way and close the doors, like it's movable once a
It
year.
might be a little more durable than cedar.
Than cedar.
Yeah, and it might last longer. And you can find, yeah. So this is temporary, or if it works?
It won't be attached, it won't be permanently installed.
Yeah.
So again, will we actually lift it up every winter? We probably would at first, at least because there's a lot of ice that dumps on that, and so just for the life of the ramp, we probably would try to move it. Yeah, so it won't be temporary in the sense that it won't be attached to anything, it'll just be set on the ground, maybe dug in a little bit, but removable.
Yeah, the trick is to keep the grade pitching away, but it pitches both directly away and then to the south, so you've got two pitches to work with, so
Mhm.
there'll be a little bit of grading just to get it lined up at the end so that it's
Level,
flat
so
enough,
it's
so to
not,
speak,
yeah.
without having any backflow.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Have we thought about the parameters of quote unquote maintenance? Whether this would constitute maintenance and therefore not needed?
It's a brand new, I'll call it structure, because it doesn't,
It's a structure.
well, according to the town ordinance, structure has to be something that protects. So like a fence isn't considered a structure, even though you would kind of call it a structure, particularly if it's staying there, I agree. But I think the issue is more in trying to stay away from something permanent, that's what they were trying to do. So there wasn't a permanent ramp that was either earthen or some construct that 12 years from now, when we decided to do something different, or it just went rotted or whatever, wouldn't be a huge issue to.
Second question is, has the state reviewed this yet, to your knowledge?
That's
Yes.
what she has here.
So my first submission was not approved. She had a site visit, she came out, we talked about it. I met with Kevin again, we revised it a little bit, just trying to make it even less of a thing.
Why was it not approved
And-
initially?
Partly because she wanted me to do more to convince her that other options wouldn't work.
Okay.
She's the one who suggested that we think harder about like an aluminum ramp, about moving it, things like that.
She had concerns about the grade
Yeah.
changing, which I personally thought was a little odd, considering I'd be more concerned about the aesthetics, the materials,
Right.
the posts, let's say, those
It's not
kinds
a
of
lot,
things.
not a lot of grade change,
No.
right?
Not
No,
much.
but that seemed to be the main thing that.
She was concerned, yeah, a lot about the aesthetic. She didn't ask any questions about the posts, the anchor posts. I was surprised she wasn't, to me, the most bothersome thing is having to cut the doors, because that changes the proportions a little bit. I'm like, oh, should we move the hinges up? You know, then it's like a whole can of worms. So we're only cutting, I did do the calculation, and we're only cutting 2.5 to 3 inches off. So that's less, I was thinking we had to cut the whole 8 inches off to get it to go over, but that's not the case.
And those are
But
not,
she was more concerned about gravel instead of grass, which I think is outside the purview of the review, frankly.
well, she requested that all of the rest of the area, other than where the ramp is out, be grass, which is literally bringing more wetness closer to the building. Maintenance issue.
Right.
Mowing, trimming. And the fact is, it doesn't play to the building.
Yeah.
Those were carriage doors. It would have been probably hardpack or gravel
Right.
anyways, so.
Yeah.
So that was all worked out.
Yeah, but we were able to meet with her, revise, and resubmit, basically just saying, yes, we thought this through, and here's what we're proposing.
Does the ramp have to be ADA standard, so whatever grade you pull off that, does the ramp have to replicate that?
No.
No.
Because of the historic nature of the site.
Okay.
We have to make it better, like we
Yeah.
can never make anything worse, but we don't have to comply exactly. Like obviously, if we do a renovation that's over a certain level, the 20% rule, then we have to get more serious about it. But in a small project like this, I think just trying to make it better is helpful. Can we still be sued under ADA? Yes. But we're not, we're not obligated to.
Talking 6 inches of height, so you need 2 feet of ramp to be ADA compliant, isn't it 1 foot for every 6 inches?
It would have to be,
And the six.
it's
Yeah.
1 foot for every inch, right?
But it was every
I thought it was half a foot.
I thought it was 1 degree, yeah, 1 foot for every,
I think it would,
I think
Yeah.
you're right.
and that's, if you saw on my very high-tech graph paper sketches in there,
You're still at 8. Depends on how much you bring up.
yeah. I think it'll be, and exactly, like
It's
so
really the angle of the sill or the threshold, the stone itself,
Mhm.
the outer edge of the
they have to
ramp.
clear that stone.
So what that angle is basically the angle you're gonna keep coming out. It should be somewhere between 6 and 8 feet.
Yeah, it's 1 to 12, so 1 inch for every 12, 1 inch for every foot.
Yeah, and so if we were to do that, it would be it would be twice as long. The shortest we can do to clear the stone is a 4-foot section. So I'm imagining we'll be closer to 6 to sort of split the difference, and not make it be too massive.
Another question. Is the door structure itself original fabric? It's new,
The barn door,
okay.
I'm told that do you know that,
I
Kevin?
know that it's
Okay.
not original to the building.
Okay, I talked to a contractor and I thought he said he replaced the doors, but I haven't actually confirmed that. But you
The reason
remember
I
that those
asked-
doors have been replaced?
The reason I ask is that would change the look, cutting off
Yeah.
a lot of the doors.
Yeah. Which
If
is,
it's not original fabric, I don't know how important that is, and that's what I'd like to know, what the state's view on it is.
They have approved it. Cutting just those two doors, someone at one point had said, well, do we need to cut them all so that they line up, so that they all match? And we're not proposing to do that, we're proposing to just cut the one that we need to be
you're
shorter.
basically getting over whatever the top elevation of the ramp is. So my guess is it's about 2 to 3 inches at most.
Mm.
Can't imagine they're original.
I'm pretty sure Aaron said he was there in like 2009, I think.
They look pretty,
Could they be that new?
they look fairly.
I believe that when they put in, I'm trying to remember who it was that did it, but when they put that glass
Mm-hmm.
in, is when they just redid the doors. So stop swinging around.
That would be older than what I'm thinking. If that's a critical factor, I could work to confirm that. I suspect somewhere we have those records.
Who's making the cut?
You want to? Is that volunteer?
So
Have you talked about the posts? Or anything?
You said wood,
Yeah, we had originally said wood or granite
granite,
in the application. She didn't comment on it, and so I would frankly rather do wood. I think granite is a little bit of overkill for somewhere where they weren't there before. I think if there had been granite there before, we
Yeah.
would put it back. It seems like a little bit of an I don't know.
right now it's like a stake.
yeah, it's on the back side of the
A
door.
wooden stake
Where you
or?
have it open, it's a wooden stick, does it
Yeah,
have a metal,
most of them have a metal spike
a
on the
little
bottom,
metal
and you literally just
Yeah.
like drop it into the ground.
Yeah.
horse barn has the same kind of use.
It isn't
But-
lined with a hole in it or anything?
No,
There's
you
a
just
hole
you just
in it.
have to hit good ground.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
So you-
Every time you just.
Yeah, you just stick it in
So
the ground.
obviously the wind is just racking those
Right,
doors
yeah.
all the time, so at least if you were to attach it a third of the way up with, talking about doing some sort of hook, it would give some stability to the door when it's open.
One more question. Have we precedents for waiving public hearing? Have we done that?
This is the first one, the new ordinance.
So we're setting a precedent for doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a precedent in the sense of we're allowed to do it.
Yeah.
I guess the procedure I saw as I'm involved in the actual work,
Yeah, I'm not opposed to waiving
I feel it's different if it was some other application coming in than the thought process is that in some minds was that I could literally meet with the board of selectmen and we could decide on our own. My precedent is that we do it as a committee. And then the added thing on top of it is the fact that I'm involved in this, so I really felt it was important that it be a committee decision instead of just the two people.
it. In anticipation that if I make a motion, that there will be further discussion, I would move that we waive a public hearing for this project. Part of the rationale for me is that it's a public safety issue, and we don't need to draw it out any longer. And therefore, I think it's a good precedent. And so therefore, I move that we approve it, not approve the project, that we waive the need for a public hearing so that the project can go forth. Are you looking for approval for the project itself?
I think we gotta do it the other way. In other words, I don't think we can grant a waiver of a public hearing if we haven't approved the project first. Right? Because what you're doing is saying this project doesn't elevate itself to the level of needing a public approval.
I'm not clear.
The idea is that it's for projects that are below a certain threshold that the regulations allow for a waiver. But you're only gonna know that you're at that if you approve the project and it falls below that level.
Okay, I'll amend my motion that we approve the project and waive need for public hearing.
Okay. And then the second for discussion.
So second?
Second? Okay. So, yeah, I think what we need to do.
I guess my only thing before is, we say permanent, I just want, maybe make it so, let's pretend like it might not be permanent, or, I'm sorry, temporary, is what I'm saying. It sounds like you have that in mind.
Yeah, well, and that goes
You
back
say temporary, but it sounds like it's,
temporary forever.
yeah, exactly.
Removable,
Yeah.
whether
Right,
it's
but
removable.
I get what he's saying, the
Let's-
fact that there'll always be in some
Pretend like it's
iteration,
permanent.
a ramp now because of this granting.
The door cut and the post will certainly be permanent.
Yes.
Whether or not we pull the reins, yeah.
So, so that's why for these waiver things, we still have to go back to the actual application and say, yes, it fits everything else that we would normally require. Now we can just say, but it doesn't raise to the level of needing a public hearing. So if you're comfortable with the fact that it says, I guess you'd have to go back into the project narrative, that the idea is if this works, it will always be there, even if this one rots and they do another one, right? That's what you're getting at.
Mhm.
It's permanent in the sense of from now till whenever,
Right.
even though it's temporary in the sense you can remove it each season.
Right.
Is that clear? Sense?
So do you want me to amend do you want me to edit the application? Or is it, does it cover that point that you just?
I think the problem that I saw right off the bat, it says repair to an existing affecting exterior features.
Does it say temporary on
It doesn't say anything to that. So I would refer to the project narrative and consider this in addition to an existing building.
Okay. I was considering the ramp to already be there, the earthen ramp, but we can consider this a new.
that? Because if it isn't temporary, then what would you, I mean, are you thinking about what you're gonna do for it to be permanent? Like, I guess, does that make sense?
No? No, it doesn't make sense,
You're saying it's
and no, I'm
temporary,
not.
you're saying it's temporary, right?
It
Is that
is
temporary, like
removable.
removable?
It is removable.
Temporary, like throughout the season is what you're saying.
It
I
would
think
be
of like
there through the
temporary,
season.
like a year or two.
Like, right, some ordinances will say 30 days or
Okay.
whatever. It'll be there through the season
Okay,
at least
For-
is the idea.
forever.
Correct.
Okay, alright.
Yeah, so I
So I like
what you're saying.
removable more than temporary, I guess, that makes more sense.
Okay.
Maybe it's amend, I guess.
Yeah, so if you can describe it as a removable
There we go.
Ramp
ramp
with permanent posts and trimmed doors.
to serve a multi-year or whatever function. I think that gives you the idea that although it's removable and temporary seasonally, that it's something you plan on doing season after season after season if it works.
Vernal, is that like a vernal? Is that only water? Anyway,
That's-
I know what you're talking about.
I got a
It's only
7-year-old
spring.
at
Okay.
home, I got spring and everything.
No vernal ramps?
Unless you only put it out in spring.
So I think the application
New cover sheet?
could be revised as we've just discussed. And the details, of course, instead of this only needs to be a
More work
brief
for you?
description anyways, but if you have this attached to the application, you can say see the scope of work.
Okay,
So just don't rewrite everything here,
okay,
just reference scope. That make sense?
it does, so do this now,
If you like,
or,
Sorry.
yeah.
no, not fine. But-
So, any other discussion, questions, or?
Is part of the application a request to waive hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how, now an applicant on that can put that request for a
The only other thing I would say is that I hope that we don't have to wait for 5 years to see if this works in order to do something about the north end, because it's really important. I've been tripping over it for years.
Yeah. It seems like a quick fix, but it's not, because of not only the amount of work and money it will take to raise those granite pieces, but the impact upon the foundation. And I think that would be a major undertaking. It could be done with
What kind of
money.
foundation is there right now?
It's just stone.
Stone.
Yeah, and it's already had gophers, got burrows and all kinds of stuff. The sills under it have been worked on. And there was some sections of the stone that's been mortared and fixed.
Do you talk about ideas for the north side today?
Did we talk about it? Not really, I think we're no,
Okay.
It's basically a piece of metal grate, a piece of, almost like metal decking.
Our stuff.
That's what it is right now.
Yeah. And it's at a pitch, that.
Is there restrictions on the type of wood you can use on Shaker Village, like eBay being a jungle wood versus a native? I'm just asking out of curiosity.
she may
Is
well
there-
care about that,
She didn't ask.
Yeah, in that case,
but I said cedar, I did say cedar in the revised application.
Well, because cedar's not really available in Canterbury. That's the only reason I ask, is like red oak or white oak is readily
Yeah,
available.
white
It's
oak would be.
very
Yeah,
durable,
white oak.
heavy, and ain't gonna move.
I could probably, like, that's something I could probably update with her by an email, but I would have to do it in advance.
I don't wanna reinvent the wheel on you, I was just curious
No,
as to how they.
No, I think that's,
It's a good
yeah.
point. It's a good point.
And there I say remove, I'm just reading through to make sure that I don't have,
So while I can put a pause on this, and then I can give you in a moment, Gail. Gail is here from, are you on Welch Road or Morrill Road?
I'm actually, my address is Morrow,
It
but
is Morrill.
my driveway. Is on
She
Welch.
is observing us tonight to see if this is something that she would participate in, being a member or an alternate,
Awesome.
possibly. So I invited her and she accepted, so she's taking this in for what it's worth, so thanks for coming tonight,
Yeah, welcome.
appreciate it. How long have you been in town?
I was born in town. I lived here all my life. I moved out after, after high school, college. And came back in 2007
7?
and bought the little house
Where did you live when you grew up?
on Foster Road, Winograd's old house.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, my house.
Your house.
Yeah, one more comment.
Absolutely.
And concerns, if this is going to be the pattern for similar renovation or safety, whatever, for the north door. I believe the north door is original fabric. And if so, I don't know that we wanna be cutting off the bottom of it to fix it, so we need to take that into consideration for whatever fix
Yeah.
there is for the north door, but that's,
That would be a separate thing, and that's a consideration if it's original material, absolutely. And, well, I was just gonna say, and maybe if this proves to work down the road, who knows? Maybe that becomes the main entrance or signed as accessible friendly
Yeah.
or something.
I mean, I think even accessibility aside, it's just a tripping hazard. Last fall, when I was working in the shop on Saturdays, like, not even even people without mobility challenges, like the door would like take their shoe off as they're trying to step up in, you know?
Yeah,
Like it's just awkward the way the door closes and you're stepping up and, you know. So I think that even if it's not for actual accessibility, we should improve the safety of that other entrance as well.
Yeah.
But I'll have to look and see, I'll have to study the work that was done before and see if that is historic fabric, those doors. For sure. So I believe that I have caught it all.
okay,
I just here corrected this to here, I added see the narrative scope of work, and then I just, this is the only temporary reference I think I found and changed to removable.
okay.
Did that catch it?
Sure. We will through it just to make sure
Okay.
before it gets officially filed, but
Okay.
that will be part of the motion
Yeah, as
as a
updated.
condition. Yeah, because basically when we give approval, we can list conditions anyway, so clarify that temporary permanent part. Alright, any other comments, questions?
So I have a question about process. Are you talking about questions for me? So we talked about a motion, we talked about a modification. Are we voting or we wait to vote?
So, because this is the first time we've ever done this waiver process,
Yep.
and my interpretation is that we need the approval first, and then we can waive it. The idea being it would be for these minor type things.
So this is a new thing to the HTC?
This is the first time we've ever
Okay.
used this waiver.
So in the past, a
Public
project like this wouldn't have,
They would have had to done the whole public hearing,
okay,
10-day notice,
okay,
mailing to abutters,
okay,
and all of that.
so we're trying to
We're trying to alleviate it for
bypass
certain
all that,
types of projects that
okay.
really don't have that impact, which is why I like having.
So I didn't make too much work for you.
Right,
No,
so,
not at all.
so yeah, this is my interpretation of how the ordinance could be. Other people thought that you could just tag him and I at the country store and we could sign off on it. I thought that was a little old school.
Have we ever voted on the motion?
Good to me.
Yeah, we voted on the motion, we have discussion, so now I'll entertain a motion for approval of the project with a waiver of public hearing based upon the wording that we've inserted. And I'm not supposed to be making that motion because
I thought Harry already made it.
are we all set then?
Yeah,
Okay. So all in favor of approval of this project and public waiver of public hearing? Just signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 3?
So, hold on a sec. How many people are on the HDC?
5.
5. So, 2 people, is that enough to vote?
No, there's 3.
I don't vote, right?
When did this come about?
Is
I
this out of your
thought, I
It's
thought
not coming back
that,
to me.
planning board was the only one where the BOS rep is ex officio, is HDC, the BOS rep votes?
According to the regulations, the Board of Select Representative is one of the 5 voting members.
Okay, awesome.
So that, whoever's interpretation would be a complete change of this,
Nope, we can, that's,
okay?
if the regulations say that, then that was just, I
Yeah,
haven't
no,
read the HDC
I'm-
regulations.
if you'd like, I'll
Nope,
clarify with whoever needs.
nope, that's
clarification.
good, so Calvin, you're voting
Yes,
aye.
I just wanna make sure, yeah.
No, I didn't,
Yep,
glad you
and
brought that up, I
Kevin
had no idea there was even.
Is abstaining. No, I didn't, that's it's not normally like this, I'm so sorry.
Oh, I-
Okay,
I'm learning today.
We're normally home by us.
okay, alright, so Harry made the motion, Alex seconded it, there was further discussion, Harry, Alex, Calvin voted aye, Kevin abstained, the motion was to approve the application and waive the public hearing. Everybody's on the same page about? all that, okay,
Sounds good.
thank you.
So I'll give this to you,
And I will bring it up to Michelle.
bring that to Michelle.
I'm going up there right now.
Will there be digital copies
Yes.
available so that we don't have to have printed stuff?
Yes, I can,
Gmail, that's what.
I can,
That's true.
scan this and put it up on the page for this meeting.
Yeah. That would be wonderful, and then I will need an approval certificate to sign.
Okay.
May I take another minute of your time to just do some updates on what's coming next?
Absolutely.
So this project was a high priority for us. We didn't get it done before opening, but hopefully we'll get it done at some point in the season. Coming next, we have the preservation of the meeting house, which is funded and ready to move forward, but I don't yet have, I haven't brought it to the HDC yet. I have also not sent it to the state yet for the easement approval. So I'm still working on putting together the alteration request. But that will be preservation of the windows, replacement of the roof, repointing chimneys, and then sort of general carpentry repairs and painting. Eventually, we will probably propose adding storm windows in order, we don't heat the building, so it's not about energy efficiency, but it's about protecting the windows themselves, which are highly significant. But that, I think, we're going to hold off on because I suspect that that's going to require a lot of thought and discussion, and we don't wanna hold the whole project up with that. So I'll probably get one application into you for the larger project, and then we'll do the storm windows later. We're also, just today I submitted a grant application for the rehabilitation of the East House, which is the children's house at the end of Meeting House Lane, the white building. So hopefully that'll be coming next construction season, hopefully starting in the spring. We're hoping to do the horse barn roof this season, so I'll be coming to you just for the roof on that project sometime soon. And then I applied for a grant for the infirmary, a full rehab of the infirmary, but that's federal, and so I'm guessing that that project is not going anywhere this year. But anyway, it could be that you see a lot of me this year, at least some of me, so
That would be nice.
we'll keep things moving forward.
Things are happening.
Question. Do you have a time frame for the project with the dwelling house
The dwelling house or you mean the
Construction.
meeting house?
this year?
The meeting house, we're hoping to get to
I mean,
construction
meeting
this
house,
year.
I'm sorry, meeting house.
My goal is to get the two roofs done at a minimum this year, the meeting house and the horse barn. And then probably next year, the carpenter that we think we'll use is not available until next year. So it'll probably be 26 for, the windows are starting soon, but that's, again, mostly preservation, nothing will be changing with the windows except a fresh coat of paint. So that's sort of our plan, windows first, well, windows ongoing, and they'll be removed and done on site. So I can do just the window application separate if you want, is that your preference?
Yeah, so according to the ordinance, any removal requires HDC approval. So I would see that, since it's just preservation of the windows, something that we could do, again, a public waiver,
Okay.
streamline it, get it going,
Okay.
if that's.
So I'll just make a note to myself to go ahead and just at least get that piece going, because I have all the detail on that piece. Some of the others, we have to, and you might remember from the dwelling house roof, because of the dormers, the detailing gets a little challenging on how to detail the cedar roof. And so that could take a little bit longer, but I can go ahead and get to you with the windows, and then we can get the other one to you soon. But hopefully I'll get the two roofs and the chimneys done, this season, if not more.
Who's doing the windows?
Did you ever get the
Arch
belfry?
Weathers,
Is it?
Arch Weathers.
Did you ever get the leak in the belfry fixed?
Not yet. Aaron Sturgis is coming next Friday to look at, we have a structural bulge in the meeting house north end, the east house, the whole sill, it's a double sill on 3 sides, gonna come look at that, and then we'll get him up in the cupola up there too. Yeah, you guys probably know this better than I do, but it is hard to find people with time. So hopefully he'll come next Friday and look at all of this, when he can actually do it, or someone can actually do it, I'm not sure.
Did you guys get that? I remember when you came in the select meeting, we were talking about like almost like city year for preservation carpentry. the program with the federal workers, did you guys end up getting any of those?
HistoriCorps,
Historic.
so we're still working on that, they're really, I'm having a hard time communicating with them. They are not gonna do the horse barn roof. They, when they were scoping that out, they realized to get volunteers up on that roof, they needed to stage the whole thing. And that flipped our budget upside down, that was a lot of staging to get that building safe.
Did you ever reach out to like North Bennett Street with their preservation carpenters and their programs?
We haven't worked with them lately. I know that they have an interest in doing internships, but we right now don't have anybody on staff with the expertise to have an intern. So we're working on trying to build that capacity.
I mean, they got a great program, it'd be
Yeah.
right up their alley with all the work.
Ollie Fifield is probably going to be doing the meeting house work. He's not available until next year, from what I understand. So that will bring a little Bennett Street to the village, but. Yeah, any other questions for me at this point?
Yeah, I guess I was gonna talk to Kevin about this, I don't know if the subject is gonna come up, but I've seen the report on the windows.
Mhm.
And do you have any objection to that being public in this?
The window, document that Jim Garvin put together?
Jim Garvin's report on it?
Yep, I don't have any problem with that being shared with everybody. Would you like me to send it? Well, I guess I would send it to you and then you could distribute it. Would you like me to do that? We also have historic building
You have to
assessments.
decide whether you wanna do that or not, but I would recommend it because it's an excellent report. It really gives you insight into what the issues are.
Yeah, he just sent me today a scope of work for the chimney repointing on the meeting house also. I've never seen a chimney scope at 12 pages, but this one is, it's thorough. Jim is good, I don't know if you guys know Jim Garvin, he's amazing, but he is also thorough. So we're meeting with the chimney company with ProPoint on Friday afternoon, so Jim wanted to get his scope prepared before we meet with them. So I'm happy to do that. We have a historic building assessment for the meeting house project. And then we have the scopes starting to come together, so we have the windows and the chimneys together, working on the roof. And then we have a historic building assessment now for the east house. These are gigantic documents because of all the photos, so, you know, I can find a way to share a link with you or something.
Really, the link is
But they're massive, like I actually can't
because
email them
unless
to you.
they're part of an application, I don't think we wanna be
Yeah,
piling stuff into
okay,
the HDC files when it doesn't really relate.
when we're not ready. Okay, but I'll make sure I include them when we move that
For
forward.
informational.
Like when I apply for the windows, I'll make sure I attach that, or a link to that. Okay, great.
I don't consider that report as part of the application, I consider it as information for us. People who don't know all the ins and outs about window construction and heating and cooling issues and all that, because it's an invaluable report for people who are gonna have to make a decision on what
Right, but
we approve.
but until there's an applicant that has a reason to present it, this
Understand.
board should not be researching, so to speak. And certainly not outside the realm of an official meeting, and that was kind of my
Okay.
thing about
We're not researching, we're just reading, we're getting informed.
yeah, but ex parte, and I don't wanna get into the whole right to know stuff, but we can't blur the lines of in what discussion you have and what role you have. Right, so if something hasn't been brought to this board, I personally don't feel that as a member of the building committee up there, that I should share any information from that committee to this board until that organization has presented some reason for it to be discussed. Any more than I would talk to that organization about this board and how it operates, other than procedural. Because it's wearing two hats. Does that make sense?
Are you worried that it's gonna prejudice us?
No, I just don't, I'm not worried about how you would handle it or I would handle it. I'm worried about putting the town in a position where somebody down the road says, well, why were they talking about it long before there was even an application?
You would prefer that we have a group of village idiots that come in and have to make a decision on the first night without even thinking about it?
No, and my history has been, I have never believed that this board should feel it should have to make a decision upon the first presentation of the application. It has been the history of this board to do that. I don't think that's right, because there have been lots of things that I think should have been thought about, even for 5 days and reconvene before approval. But I've been voted down before that. My point is that there are laws now that whether we like them or not, that we have to follow, and that ex parte communication about something can be a legal issue that the town has already had some issues with.
I guess it depends on how you define ex parte communication.
Right, if you and I have a private discussion about what's going on at the village as private individuals, that's one thing. But if we're sharing thoughts about certain aspects of a project between any other HDC member, you can't do that, right?
I fail to see the distinction. You and I can talk about it, but he and I can't talk about it?
Not if we're talking about it as HDC people.
I'm sorry?
So Harry, have you had a chance to do the right to know training? Have you had a chance to look at that?
I'm sorry, I
Video?
can't hear.
Have you had a chance to look at the right to know training that we did in April? Have you watched that video
Have I watched a video?
of the right to know training?
I'm sorry, I can't hear. What have I watched?
The right to know training?
No, I have not, but I
Okay.
grew up with the right to know law for 37 years in government, so I am familiar with it.
Okay, cause we go over examples of what you can talk about and in the circumstances you can talk about it. So that might be helpful to clarify.
The issue is not talking about it, the issue is learning. We can all learn without talking about it.
Yes.
Is there any reason why we can't learn and have information before we talk about it? There's nothing in the right to know law that prohibits that.
No, I'm not saying you can't do
That's my
that.
point.
Okay,
And all I'm saying is that as a building committee member, I don't talk about what happens in that building committee with anybody, even if they have some other aspect of involvement with the village. Because as a committee member, I feel that information is only for the committee. When the organization chooses to then put that out there in some other aspect, that's their right to, but it's not up to me to jump the gun, so to speak.
It seems like to me, even if we're waiving, that one we might not, waiving a public hearing, I certainly need to get all of the information to you at least 10 days, if not more, in front of the meeting, so that you have time to read and process all of that.
You could put
I
it,
can certainly do that, and I could get it in farther, you know,
You do
farther
it
in
months
advance
in
than 10
advance.
days,
Yeah. but it's not up to anyone other than Shaker Village to
to distribute
disseminate
that information.
that information.
Okay.
Even though you have a personal relationship with the village and I do, we have to not step over that boundary.
In other words, stay ignorant.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No. You should absolutely read the documentation, it's just discussing it amongst yourselves before the hearing where it becomes a problem. So absolutely read it, I send it along and we can put it with the application, cause it's resources that everybody's looking at, so.
And honestly, in my view, had I not been part of that loop, it probably wouldn't be an issue.
Mhm.
Because you're the only HDC member, so there's no thought that it could be a discussion amongst two members of the board, right? It was a discussion with you and some other private citizens.
Yeah. And it really wasn't a discussion. He sent me a copy of it because I had raised an issue.
And that raising of an issue as a board member is what leads to the problem.
Well, we need to have more communication among the board, because if somebody comes up to me on the street, which is what happened, and said, what's going on with Shaker Village? And I understand they've got a bunch of experts looking at windows, and say, I don't know, I'm ignorant. Then what do? I write to Jim Garvin, who's a longtime friend and associate, and I said, what's going on? And he said, I'll send you the copy, and he did. So I feel a lot more enlightened about what's going on, and they're encouraged by what's going on. But I don't think I've crossed any lines as far as sharing that with anybody. It's my knowledge. It sits up here waiting for this project to come forward.
But in general, the fact that I'm on that loop has two members of the board that will make some sort of a decision in the future. And there was a specific reference to the storm windows, which is something that we wouldn't have any knowledge of, and therefore shouldn't have an opinion on. And that's,
If you get knowledge about an application before the public hearing, just mention that at the public hearing, say, like, I learned about the windows, I read this document that was sent to me, and this is, and just make sure that it's part of public records so that anybody could see, oh, this is the document you read, and this is how it's affecting your decision. That's so, cause I mean, knowledge is gonna happen, like,
Right.
even if you just drive by something, you see, oh, look, I can see that they're doing the windows today, like, just if it's affecting your decision, that needs to be in the record so that people can tell, oh, this is why so-and-so voted this way, so that's the only thing.
but that's at the time of an application.
And that's when the application comes in, then
Right.
just make sure during the public hearing, everybody who is a member of the public can also have the same information as you. So that's it.
Well, I will keep you guys posted and I'll share things with you as soon as I get them ready.
Okay.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Appreciate it.
Good night.
The other thing I had on the agenda was if we could get a Sam Lake garage renovation update.
Yeah, we accepted the bids for the HVAC, electrical, and garage. None of the work is slated to start until after the Canterbury Fair, so in August they will start the process. In terms of the roof, they hadn't decided on what they wanted to do with the roof yet, whether it's gonna be asphalt or was it faux synthetic slate, whatever they wanted to call it. That wasn't determined yet by the board, it was sort of an option, like an add-on. So I think we're leaning more towards asphalt shingles, but nothing's gonna happen earliest until August. So that's about it for that. There's been no materials determined.
Is there a schedule for that? I mean, are they just gonna decide this week we're doing the roof, so let's go buy?
As far as I know, whatever was in the bid was what, there's no schedule or scope of work, as in, August 1st through 10th, we're gutting and demoing, August 15th through 21st deciding, there was none of that.
So you don't know.
Just the overall scope of work and the time frame typically was 4 to 6 weeks, I believe, for the carpentry.
As the chairman of HDC, I guess what I would say is that although you don't need permission to do anything, the town, the select board, that there is the issue of public notification. And it creates an issue if the selectmen don't know what's gonna happen with saying, we've approved this project, and all of a sudden now there's synthetic tiles on the roof because you weren't told ahead of time. And somebody just made a spot decision and the public doesn't have a right to go, how did that happen? Cause any work within a historic district that would require the public to go through the application process still has to be, on the town's part, publicly noticed. I believe it's 60 days. It's like RSA 674 or something. Right? So that normally doesn't happen. I can't think of one time the town actually noticed the town of what type of building project was going on.
The only thing I could think of to counter that would be if the HDC came up with a list of, I don't know, you have a list of materials, et cetera, but I brought this up with Ken at one of the meetings, was if we could have a standard of windows, whether they're Marvin 6, you know, whatever, if there was a list of that, we could potentially expedite the process. If you said, no, the only roofing that's acceptable on these buildings is X, Y, and Z, we can then force the hand of what comes in for our estimates and what gets used, as opposed to leaving it as a, give us your best number.
Right.
You know, so I think if, I'm not, this is only my second meeting, so I'm not really aware of all the movings and groovings.
And so there are within the regulations, things like you can only use this material, or you can't use that material. Granite foundations or brick foundations, but you can't have more than 15 inches of exposed concrete or something to that effect. So there are those things. What I'm saying is that it's hard for the town to say, we're gonna stick to those things in the historic district, if they're not gonna look at the list, first off.
Mhm.
And if what they're saying is, you give us a list of the things, although we wouldn't allow anyone else to do it, we'll allow the town to do it, that's like creating all this work for naught. That's putting the cart before the horse.
Well, I mean, they used cement siding on the store, they've used it on the, you know what I mean, so I think in terms of, if we want to hasten the process, if you guys just came up with a list of, we only accept cedar platforms, we only, you know, that sort of stuff, maybe it would expedite the process and help us understand what's coming down for materials, and then maybe that could help with the schedule of work or scope of work. I wanted it to go smoother, so if we know what's going in ahead of time,
Well,
we
I
can
just think
say,
I think it's hard, because what you're telling me is that the town doesn't even know what material will be used. As opposed to, here's a list of the materials our contractor's using, what do you think, HDC? We may not agree with you, but at least you had notification.
well, and I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is if we're, I don't wanna use the word, I don't know the word to use, but if we're proactive in the sense of the HDC says, listen, contractor A, all we allow is ABC, these are the only types of windows we accept with this minimum standard, this finish or whatever, then it will drive the contractor to only bid on
Right.
those materials versus, hey, I'm gonna go to Home Depot and get Anderson 400s versus a better window, you know what I mean, or something that matches better. I think that might be the only way that we can drive the process more directly versus opening it up for open bids. Or we need to work better in conjunction with, when we put out a bid for, you know, each building.
Hand in the ordinance. The regulations that we spent 2.5 years on,
I'm curious, is it a Canterbury thing, or is it all towns that are immune to an HDC? All towns are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know why that is? Just
because they can,
Yeah.
which is, that's the law, I don't have a
Yeah, no, I
problem
was
with
just
it.
curious, I didn't.
But there's the issue of, just do you wanna try,
Yeah,
and to do that, you have to have some sort of guideline
right.
of what the materials are and what the process would be, one or the other.
Mhm.
And maybe in the process that we will get materials lists that you spec'd out based upon cost, present that to the board, and then they can yay or nay it. They still don't have to listen to us, but at least it would be a public
Right.
viewing of what's going on before they actually appear on the roof.
Right.
So in the future then, you want the HDC to hear or see the sealed bids prior to the select board approval, is that sort of right?
No, I think there should, no, because the budget part isn't the concern, I think it's more that either they should be spec'd with the regulations in mind, so that you know when they bid it, what you're getting. I think that benefits the town in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I don't know what kind of windows they're gonna put in, right?
I was in the same boat with you on that one.
Right, so, I mean, in the old days, when I first started, it had to be wooden true divided lights, period. So you ended up with a bunch of Rivco windows, okay? which kind of defeated the purpose, but the intent was that you wanted divided light, so we've moved to a modern, divided lights and simulation, as long as the shadow and profile works, okay? That's that meet and great, but if they're just gonna pull off, 2-pane window, vinyl, whatever, you as the town can't go back and say, well, you can't do that because you didn't spec anything.
Is there a specific list, other than guidelines, is there a list of materials that are approved, if that makes sense? If there's.
I can get you, or Cal can get you the regulations
Mhm.
as they are. But any project has the ability to come in the application and say, well, this is why we can't meet that, right?
Okay.
It's like a mini variance almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, okay, we understand they don't make, that anymore, so you can use that. But if somebody says, I'm just gonna put in, pressure treated walkway between Sand Lake and the thing, well, we don't allow unpainted pressure treated
Mhm.
anything in the historic district.
So then how would you want the HDC to be involved in the decision-making process then? Like at what phase would you wanna be included before it was approved? If that makes sense.
I would think up front in the scope of work generation, no?
So I just wanna make sure I bring this over correctly, so.
Well, I'm speaking myself, I'm happy for you guys to put in too, because this is my opinion that we end up with a project that even the select board doesn't know what the materials are gonna be. We would never allow that for any resident, why are we allowing it for that?
So then you want the scope of work brought to you guys first, you can review the scope of work.
I
And
think,
then you can add whatever restrictions, limitations, whatever to the scope of work
Well,
before we publish it.
again,
Suggestions?
they would only be suggestions.
Okay,
But the fact of the matter is, if anybody else came in here and said, we're gonna put on those plastic simulated shingles, would you vote for that?
Right.
Would you vote for that?
No.
Right? I mean, that's an example of trying to make it fair to people in town, and yet, we're not holding the town itself to some.
no, I totally agree,
And
I
in the
just
end-
wanna make it so there's no loss in translation.
Yeah, no, and I think in the end, you probably end up with a better project.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the town should be able to say, I can't just take your bid because I don't know what you're using for materials. I don't know what the trim deal on the corner boards will be, I don't know what's the reveal on the class, Those are small things that nobody wants to make a Bible this big that you have to follow, you can go to Amherst for that. There are towns that do it, but what I'm saying is I think there's a flip side to it too, where at least the Board of Selectmen could talk with the HDC and say, before we start this project out to bid, what are the things that, absolutely we can't do? Well, look at the regulations, this is what we hold our townspeople to.
So would you almost want like what do you call it? Like a bidding proposal spec sheet like we do for everything else, like when you come to the planning board, there's a checklist. Would you want almost I guess, yeah, be a proposal checklist, this is what we want to include, did you check the boxes for these materials, this?
Yeah.
Does it comply with
Any
reveals,
applicant that
trim?
comes in here theoretically should have cut sheets, they should have material lists, they should have elevations and site plans. Our technical requirements aren't that far off from the planning board. We
Okay,
generally aren't holding people to it because lots of the projects are not that scale, where somebody should have, a surveyed architecturally drawn plan. But the flip side is when they come in and say, well, we'll figure out what the roof material is, depending on how much money's left.
why don't I get the proposals or the bids we accepted? Let me get a copy of them from Ken, or have him forward them to you, so you can see.
Yeah.
Because the proposals weren't just here's a number, there was,
Yeah,
trim and this we're gonna use siding, et cetera.
because I've got the scope of work and it you know, as a contractor, sitting on the other side, I'd say, well, these are pretty generic. Thanks,
Thanks.
appreciate
I'll
it.
be in touch,
Okey doke.
thanks.
Yeah, that'd be the only thing is like, I totally, I get it, like, when I bid something, I bid it completely different than that, you know, personally.
Yeah.
I like to lay out, what does it cost, what is the dimensions, what's the overages, what's not.
To use the roof as an example, remove shingles and replace with new. Would like cost options for 30-year asphalt and slate.
Why are we talking about this? I don't understand what we're talking about, cost of materials, what that has to do with what we approve. I hope you took good notes, because this whole conversation has gone by me. I apologize for my hearing, but I'm having cochlear implants sometime in the fall. But I don't understand the purpose of this language, this conversation.
The conversation is about the town in putting out the bid projects within the historic district.
Projects,
Yeah,
you mean like paving the sidewalks
the
or?
Sam Lake House, which is underway, garage,
Okay,
right? So they don't have to follow any of the HDC regulations,
right,
right? Okay, but do you think that they should at least acknowledge that we do have regulations and
Sure.
maybe take that into consideration?
yes,
And that's what this discussion
that's
is
the
about.
first thing I've heard in the last hour that I understood.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Okay,
So, and specifically, when they mention the roof, asphalt or synthetic faux shingles,
yeah,
right? There's nothing here that the town gave to the contractors to say you can use synthetic shingles. So it's not the contractor's fault. But yet the town didn't do any due diligence, at least as I'm concerned, that says, hey, this is what we would like to see because it matches the community. How do we bring everyone together so there's a process for that?
aren't there, in order to have a contract, are there not specifications about what goes into the contract, the materials and so on, the quantities? I mean, it's just not a contractor going out and say, well, I think I'll build this because I like that. He has to have a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't the plan have specifications? And doesn't the specifications say what he's gonna put on?
It should,
Then what's the problem?
it doesn't, right?
Right.
Is this what went to the bidders?
Yeah, that was what was posted on the
That's what was given
website.
to people who wanted to bid on the project.
First I've seen of this.
I didn't see it much before you. And I guess that's my point, Harry, is that it would be a function of this board to be in that loop long before.
It would be nice to have had this before this discussion, so I'd know what you were talking about, so.
Well,
Getting all vinyl windows, architectural.
Yeah.
Are you born?
Is this the only copy?
you can have that.
It's on the website too, I believe it's still probably still up there, right?
I'll prepare my brief and have it ready for it next time.
Well, again, I just, I acknowledge the fact that Board of Selectmen can do what they want. I'm not arguing that.
Yeah.
What I don't think is right is that something like that to be put out there to bid has no reflection upon what the town in having a historic district ordinance is looking for. So to not even acknowledge that, I think is a failure.
Is this a design build contract where the contractor does what he wants?
I'll get you the accepted contracts, the two different contracts laid out in different depth and detail, what was used, how it was gonna be used, and the different options. But everything that was put out was just essentially replace and repair. There was no specs, no drawings, no engineered anything, because it's not a living space, so they didn't have to conform to that kind of stuff. But I'll get a hold of Ken, he's in tomorrow, right, Thursday? He's in tomorrow, I'll call him or I'll stop in, get that stuff sent to you, you can disseminate it how you want with them. And then if you have any feedback on it or questions, if you relay it back to me or Ken, we can get a hold of the contractor, if there's any red flags or, you know, stuff you want answered, we'll try to get that answered before they start the work.
Okay.
I believe the one we approved came in under a little bit from the price, so if we do have to alter some things, there's wiggle room to accommodate the HDC's requests or vision, if that makes sense.
Well, I think the problem is that we can pull out our regulations and we can look at them right now, but we don't know what we're comparing it to.
Mhm.
So,
And I think you need to make a distinction between interior and exterior. Our concern is what it looks like.
Mhm.
All this other stuff is immaterial,
right,
it's purely appearance.
Yeah.
It's called facadism.
Mhm.
so that's the thing, I mean, if you weren't here tonight and said that, I don't know, the fake roof came up, you wouldn't know it. Cause it wasn't either dismissed as part of what we wanted or allowed for what we wanted, so you're relying on somebody else to make decisions for the town.
But I'll get that stuff over to you tomorrow, I'll have Ken send it over, and then hopefully we can look at it a little bit more and try to address some problems. And then change the process to sort of,
Yeah, I just
Be
think
inclusive.
moving forward, there should be,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not looking to stop the work or anything, I'm just saying that.
no, but by being a little bit proactive, I think it's the same as this one being at a public hearing, right? If we come out with what we need, what we want, then we're not second guessing it later on,
It's
we can
just
catch
easier.
up in time and move forward.
Not to change the subject, but back to this conversation about what we are allowed to know and what we should stay ignorant about. I think it would be good for you, maybe in consultation with the selectmen or town council or whomever, to draw some guidance, write up some guidelines about what HPCs can and can't do with respect to communications.
We have them,
You have it,
yeah, the whole right to know thing that's what that's about.
okay, can I get a copy of it? Never seen it.
I emailed out the video link, it was recorded, the training, so you can watch it whenever you like.
It's in writing though.
It's a training that I did, so it's video recorded, so you wouldn't really get everything
I
from the
think that
slides.
was a no, it's not in writing.
No, it's not in writing.
Okay. Any thought about putting it in writing? That's
I
what I'm asking for,
could
is put it in
certainly
writing.
turn it into an essay. I can put it in writing. Okay,
Watching films is subject to a whole lot of interpretation.
As is writing. Right.
Writing
To
is
be honest,
much more specific,
it can be,
can be,
it
if
can
it's
be,
done
if
properly.
it's done properly, exactly.
But I think that's something that there ought to be conversation about, so that there's, at least you as the chairman, know what your committee thinks about and needs to learn about.
Again, I don't know how else to put this, and I don't wanna drag it out. But what you got from Jim Garvin was something that the building committee of Shaker Village discussed. He chose to share that with you. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, he chose to do it. When you emailed to me, and we're both on the same committee that has some jurisdiction over what they can and can't do, and it may be down the road,
Well, let me correct
That's-
something, Jim sent that to me as a friend,
no,
not as a member of the HDC.
I understand that, I understand that. This is what I'm saying though, is that it can be interpreted down the road if there was an issue, that it was communications outside of what is legally acknowledged. Am I correct?
Yes, so it was fine for you to get it, and it's fine to share it with the rest of the committee, but it's best to do that through the secretary. If you're gonna share information like that, like don't just have a conversation between the two of
You
you.
can't send it just to me.
Yeah,
You theoretically can't send it to even all of us.
yeah, you need to send it to,
It needs to go to Sam Lake House. And then they can send it to us. It also gets complicated because Sam Patz is on that. Now, he wouldn't have any,
It would just go through Cal or Ken, right?
just send it to Michelle.
no, I'm saying that, but I'm saying that there were other town people on that loop. And
He's not part of the HDC.
he's not part of the HDC.
So it's the public body, that's the problem, so the four of you and Anne are part of this public body, so you can't have discussions amongst yourselves about matters that the HDC has jurisdiction over, so it's good to get information, we want as much information as possible, but you can't discuss it amongst yourselves outside of a meeting.
I understand the theory, but the reality is that we're people, we communicate with each other. There's community knowledge.
And give me, I understand what you're saying and I agree with it, okay?
But,
I hope you understand that, yes,
I do understand.
but
The reality is also that we're handling a lot of right to know requests right now. The town has been in violation and we're trying to fix that. And if we don't comply, then that's putting the town at risk and the town may have to pay legal fees. So we all need to do our best to comply. We understand that it's not, like, things happen and the law isn't necessarily written as flexibly as it should be, but we need to do our best to comply.
No,
I would
it's,
just caution that you need to be careful what you wish for. I don't mean you personally,
Yeah,
but this whole thing is gonna drive people away from participating in
it's
governance.
not, Harry, it's not like the good old days. It's not like the good old days.
I know.
and just for the
That's
record,
basically it in short.
and your point's well taken, Harry. Your point about driving people away.
Well, I'm considering it myself.
I hear you,
I just turned 80 and I don't need this.
I hear you. I do.
it's, a lot of people unfortunately, it's just the requirements for these volunteer positions are going up and up and up and not everybody has time. And yeah, it kinda sucks, but it is where we are.
You've just lost a very valuable member when Jeff retired, because, and part of it was the bullshit that we have to put up with. So, just saying,
Just saying,
and I'll be quiet now.
I hear you, Harry.
I'll hear you.
I do, I mean, I know you do. And
Alright,
I never ever meant anything personal.
no,
Yeah.
I didn't take it that way, and I would have come down if circumstances were a little different. Things on my end too. But, so, on that note, any other business? Hopefully not.
Move adjournment.
And second? I second. All in
What
favor?
is it, aye?
Aye.
Favor, aye?
Thank you. Please.
We were going to sleep.